just cut and go to the Canadian Premier League when that happens.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know what's going on with that, and I don't know how feasible it is. Um, but it is what it is. Ottawa, like they'll be decent. I don't think they're gonna like light the world on fire. We're actually gonna do a power rankings episode
Hmm.
on the 11th. So that'll be interesting because we all filled something out, and then there's actually a poll up. I don't know if you saw it or you want to
Oh
take
yeah,
it
I
or
didn't do the
whatever.
poll yet. I'll
Okay,
do
that's
it.
fine. But I mean, it's there. So if you want to do that, but I mean, there's been some crazy, crazy answers, and different answers, which is nice. Anyway, well, Chris,
Pretty
welcome
good.
to a very different episode of the USL show. In that this is the second interview I've done today, but there's no actual show today. Um, so Chris, welcome. For those
Thank
who
you.
don't know, yeah, you're welcome. You cover Penn FC for Brotherly Game, so it wasn't very hard for me to find you.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, we're deep in the preview season, and I think I asked you like a month ago if you wanted to talk about Penn FC, and you went, "Well, let's wait till we have like players." And so here we are. So really, just kind of give us the background, like your first year in the league, and then how your last year was, and it says coach and information, and just kind of an overview of Penn FC or the Harrisburg City Islanders previous.
Yeah. Well, Harrisburg goes back pretty far back of the USL all the way to 2004. I guess they would have been in what was the USL Division Two back then, all the way through 2010. They won the Division Two championship back in 2007 over Richmond in penalty kicks, and then they were one of the first teams in the what became USL Pro in 2011. And they've been in the USL ever since, stuck through the 4 years of USL Pro and kept through when they dropped the Pro in 2015 to just become the USL. And Harrisburg's, the early years were probably the glory years. I didn't get to see much of that, but then they had some real solid years during those USL Pro years. It was, 2011 and 2014. They went to the championship both years. Lost 2011 to Orlando City and then 2014 to Sacramento. But they made the playoffs all four of those seasons. And then, so the last 3 years, they've missed the playoffs. And yeah, but still been fairly close each time.
Mhm.
Last season there was the last season as the Harrisburg City Islanders. They wound up finishing, I think it was 11th, like in that real tight window that was just outside of the playoff position is where they ended up. Uh, and it was so that yeah, it was 7 points off away from a playoff position. And so it wasn't last year. They struggled a lot. It was a lot of streaks where they were up for a little bit and then down for a long stretch. If you look at last season, there's like just a couple of stretch like the best they did was a stretch towards the end of the season
Mhm.
where they like won 4 out of 5. They beat St. Louis twice, Toronto, Ottawa, and a late draw. Gave up a late draw to FC Cincinnati, and that was like their real peak because everybody was healthy. They were playing a lot of home games, but beyond that, there was also a stretch in August where they got hammered pretty much every game. They got destroyed by Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Louisville. It was pretty rough. And so then the big news came after the season. The whole rebrand going from Harrisburg City Islanders. Now they're going to go forward with Penn FC and the connection with Rush Soccer. And that's I wish I have information on that, like what we've been getting from the team and stuff, but
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
much of that is still up in the air as far
Mhm.
as like what does that really mean?
Mhm.
And so going into the season now, it's like, I mean, yeah, those questions are still unanswered. The team, they're kind of old school, and I think they still keep a lot of things keep it to themselves. They don't want to. There's other teams that have a lot of. They're making big signings and stuff like that. They can
Mhm.
make big announcements and say, look who's going to be playing for us. Harrisburg, I don't think they're going to be making any real huge signings. as far as like real big name recognition. So I
Hmm.
think they've got guys lined up, and they're just waiting to put the team together. I feel like they're probably going to have a fair number of trialists too that they're finalizing their decisions on.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think they still the changes, just everything they change is going to be like it's going to be, this team's been around, and you feel like you're going to know what you're going to get from them, but there's a chance they could just be something completely different this year, which is
Hmm.
kind of exciting.
Yeah, yeah, and and it's kind of funny because like for I don't know the reputation that Harrisburg had, um, as not so much as a team. Like I think there was, Rapapa Mensa, who I think we'll talk about here in a minute, was a great player. And actually, I think during that stretch where you guys, got 5 games unbeaten, I think he was nominated for USL Player of the Month that month, right?
Yep, September he
So
was on there for Player of the Month.
because it's funny because I was just talking to Wes Bowling, who people have either heard before or after this, depending on how I feel like I want to split your interviews up. But I was saying that Rapapa Mensah is kind of like an interesting X factor for Nashville this season now. Um, largely in part because he was a big player for a okay, but not not a playoff team and not a terribly good team. But for the reputation that Harrisburg had as like a front office or as a communications staff or just as not putting out a lot of information, or when they do, it's wrong or just kind of goofy. It feels like Penn FC more than an interesting idea in terms of the philosophy, which I agree. Like I don't think we're really privy to in a way that's like encouraging. Like we don't know. It's very up in the air. Um, but I think it's a nice way for them to kind of have a clean slate in terms of reputation and sort of how to run the club. So um, some on the field things that you have to work out yet. Like you guys still don't have a coach, which is incredibly interesting.
Yeah,
But Bill and then Bill Betcher, moving to a what is it, technical advisor role, right?
yep. Technical advisor is
Yeah.
what the name is for what he's going to be for the team this year.
But it's really, I mean, it's probably the shadow GM, right?
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
he's just going to be. They're going to have a lot of new people coming in, and as much as these could be people who have experience with soccer, but they're not necessarily going to have experience with Harrisburg.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's great to have Bill around to be like, okay, we're going to do this. You can just have Bill be like, yeah, we tried that like 10 years ago. It did not work. So don't
Right. Right.
bother. I think he's going to be a lot of that too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because, I mean, with
Well,
the coaching situation
yeah.
at the end of the season, like, missing the playoffs 3 times, it was like most teams, it could be like, is he on the hot seat?
Mm.
But with Bill, he's every time you listen to one of the games, the guys are saying he's the only coach they've ever
Yeah.
had,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so he's done so much for them. But then it was also like so it was a coin flip. Do you go to the new transition, but keep your old coach to kind of like keep things level as you try and do this, or do you the other side of the coin would be just like he's out to all your own guys, and they kind of I think they kept him around to kind of respect how much he's given to the
Mm.
team, give him a position, but then also say it's going to be different going forward. Probably going to have a different like coaching philosophy with probably more of these young kids, and there's probably somebody else who's going to fit that a little better. So
Hmm.
that's so
Hmm.
I think that that's what I went with it, trying to do but keep both sides going.
Sure. Sure. Um, and then obviously with the Rush Soccer thing too, I would imagine they're going to bring in guys or even a coach from that. I don't know, like organization or academy or whatever you want to call them. But those guys might not necessarily have that professional coaching experience, which I think is another area where Bill is, you know, looking around the league or even at US soccer in general. I don't think there's another guy that could give them as much help as he probably will in terms of transitioning from the amateur or the academy game to the pro game.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's also been throughout the years. Bill's been a great guy at. I mean, he hasn't been the GM the whole time, but he's
Hmm.
been able to find the diamonds in the rough type players where it's like no one's heard of this guy, but he's actually really good. And so just, get a lot of mileage out of those types of guys. Probably building almost entire teams out of those types of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the sort of thing like with the rush soccer, you're going to have guys who, now in soccer are going to have hours of tape and all kinds of stuff like that you can go through. And with the rush soccer connection, you're going to have a bunch of guys who can just phone up to like, hey, did you this guy was in your academy, tell me about him.
Mm-hmm.
But still having Bill around to kind of
Scout
be able
talent
to
almost.
scout, having him too to scout the talent.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's only going to help. And it's not like Bill was going to. It's not like the types of players who it's like, like Brandon Miller who just went back to Charlotte. He's from
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte. It's not like Bill was going to go. It's not like he was going to go back to St. Louis. He's been in Harrisburg for so long that it's like,
Right,
it's
right.
home now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned Brandon Miller, and then I know obviously with an organizational change and things like that, it's kind of bound to happen maybe at a higher volume than usual. But I think really in USL we saw a lot of guys kind of shuffle around places. So obviously, Brandon Miller was a guy that left and joined Charlotte, obviously, and then the other one, Rapapa Mensah to Nashville. Any other players leaving that you think were big as far as maybe not a huge get for the other team but important ones that left you guys? And then is there anyone that you've brought in so far that you think is really going to perform well?
Yeah, it's Harrisburg's thing has always been to not. It's always been frustrating because they only roll over a couple guys from year to year, and then the best guys always seem to get snapped up by another team the next
Mm,
season because Harrisburg will only have them for a 1 year contract. And then if they played well enough that someone else had more attention, they could probably get more money elsewhere.
right, right.
But so yeah, so those are the big two. Brandon Miller going to Charlotte, that made a ton of sense for him. Because Charlotte needed a new number one goalkeeper. He's from there. He played soccer there, so can't can't blame him for doing that.
Also the good goalkeeper too. It wasn't
Yeah,
just a location thing. I think that was one where a lot of people were surprised. Maybe that he left Harrisburg in general, but then for a guy like that to wind up with Charlotte, who's a pretty solid team, just needed some defensive and goalkeeper help. It's a tidy piece of business for them, and a good move for him. But
yeah, he really helps anchor down that. They lost Cody. He went
yeah,
to Tampa Bay because Matt Pickens went to Nashville, and so it's not like they're not even gonna lose a step by having him in there.
mm-hmm.
So we lost him. Rapapa was technically on loan last season out
Yeah,
of Inter Allies, the Ghana Premier League. So same thing. I guess he got the attention. The guys at Nashville were looking for people to fill out the squad. And, that way he was playing down there. And there's tons of tape of him playing over in the Ghana Premier League too. That's how they kind of hyped up when he first signed that he's a great player. His whole thing, he got hot at the end of the season because everybody was healthy. He's a guy who gets in the box, and if he can get the ball to his feet, he can kind of work his way around and just put a great shot on goal.
mm,
Like he did that a lot. I mean, that was the thing he was best at. But then he also was still able to he got a couple good headers. I think he just like kind of lobbed one over. He had a lot of he could do. He also wasn't one dimensional. He had a lot of different skills. But
sure.
yeah, so he's going to be in Nashville. I think he was having visa trouble. He couldn't get out of Ghana for a while, but that's all
Mm,
sorted out.
mm.
He's going to be out there. He could, the team that's going to have a lot of eyes on him. He could be their number one striker.
Yeah, and that's what I got talking to Wes, was that he's going to be the guy. As far as not so much for creating chances, but definitely to finish him off. And they have a good group around him, so it'll be interesting, to see what he can do with some more weapons, or maybe just some guys that'll stay healthy all year around him for sure.
Yeah. And as far as creating production, we lost Pedro Ribeiro, signed with
Mm,
Fresno. He struggled with injury. That's been a problem he's faced his entire career. But when he was healthy, he was the guy, and he didn't have to play as he had to play as a striker for a while. But when he was healthy and he was able to play as the attacking mid, he was able to create a lot of chances. So he could, and that's a veteran presence that we're going to lose a little bit with Pedro there. Similarly, Mohamed Dabo, he was more of like the defensive midfielder who, when he was healthy, he got hurt once last season. That was a really bad stretch where he couldn't get any production. But he was great just getting it from the defense over to the offense. But he's not officially like, but he showed up on trial in Pittsburgh
Mm.
actually. So that's going to be another tough. He's a didn't make a lot of production, not a lot of numbers, but he was a big part of the team.
So
And
not a guy that's officially out the door, but for all intents and purposes, we're acting like he's not going to be at in Harrisburg next year.
yeah, if he's trialing out with Pittsburgh, that's what seems likely. Because I mean,
Is
well,
that
Pittsburgh. Last I heard, they're doing kind of what Harrisburg's doing. They're trialing a lot of guys,
sure,
and so
sure.
he showed up on the list. Is how what we've seen for that.
Yeah, and that's another thing, and that's where I think Lilly and Betcher are similar in that they'll kind of wait till after the draft. And I don't know if Bill is feeling the same way in kind of his new role. I would imagine he is, but you wait till after the MLS draft, and then maybe guys that don't have a club yet or guys that didn't get picked up, you bring them in, trial them, and then see how you feel and go from there. And to to both those guys' credits, they had success with doing that. So I would imagine that's going to be a similar theme for Rush and Penn FC, but who knows? Is that your worst case scenario, by the way? Is Mo Dabo playing for the Riverhounds next year?
I mean, that'd be a bummer, but that seems to always happen.
Mm,
A couple guys always go from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh. Like
yeah,
every season, you get used to it. I mean, last year was Kiesel. He's a broom
yeah,
went from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, and I feel like there's uh, if you go back through history, that happens a lot. Not
yeah.
as many moving the other way for whatever reason.
Sure.
And I think it's a money.
Oh, I would imagine, right?
I just
You
don't.
would
I
think.
think Harrisburg's payroll is probably the lowest in the league. It wouldn't shock me.
Maybe, and it depends because I mean, if you don't count the two teams,
Depends on
because
how you count it, because
different.
two teams.
Those are different contracts, even I'd imagine. Or yeah, a lot of kind of things that would depend on in terms of maybe there's some living wages and things like that. But
Yeah, and then those are some of the main guys, and then on top of that, to round out the ones we know about, Sean McClaws went to Oklahoma City Energy. That's another guy going home, and two Jamaican guys from last year, Cardell Benbow and Paul Wilson, are both playing back in the Jamaican
hmm,
Premier League. So we won't. I mean, those guys play great, but we won't be seeing them back, is my
hmm,
understanding. Because I mean, and that's the team hasn't done a press release, but I mean, they're on Instagram that they're playing in Jamaica and announcing that they're playing
yeah,
as
yeah.
a
You,
team
you
for
you see the geotag
Waterhouse.
on as Kingston, and you go, all right.
Yeah, yeah, it's like Waterhouse FC and Cavalier FC.
Hmm,
That's where they're playing. So it doesn't seem like Cardell Bembo went on loan for a little bit last season before the season because they started already.
right.
But it's my understanding that this seems to be like they have signed that they've transferred now back to Jamaica.
Hmm. That's not one you see often either. Is guys going back to specifically Jamaica, from the United States. Maybe that's just one of those that we don't hear about a whole lot when it happens, or maybe there's not enough Jamaicans for that to happen, or the guys that we do get from Jamaica end up doing well, or whatever. But that's interesting, and that's a
Yeah,
lot of those guys, McLaws, like Benbow, I always thought was really solid. Like it's one of those things where that's got to be like I feel bad for you, in
yeah.
terms of just losing those guys.
It's tough guys to lose, but I think it's gonna play into what they're trying to do going forward. Because I do
Hmm.
also think, in addition to like not having a lot of money, making do with who you can get, building a good solid team with kind of like what might look to others like like the what might look like leftovers, like the guys
Hmm.
who get cut at the end, like get drafted in the fourth round but get cut. Say, hey, you can come play for Harrisburg, come play for Penn FC. Putting a team together like that. But then, yeah, sometimes they might go. They pull. It seemed common that we pull guys from Jamaica or even where's Kiesel from Barbados, I
Hmm.
think,
Yeah, yeah,
and
Barbados, I believe.
some couple. There was a guy from Bahamas a few years ago that, and but then like, Yeah, it's just like year two, and then they're back.
Hmm.
They're back where they came from. I think I've seen that before. With Harrisburg, Craig Foster, he
Mm,
went back to Jamaica after playing at Harrisburg for a few years.
sure. Um, I know there's things in the works, but have we signed anybody yet? Do we think they're going to be, big, uh, big players in the team, or is it really more of a, wait and see what the kind of system shapes out to be with Rush Soccer, and then kind of make judgments from there?
Yeah, the official signings is they have four. They brought back four guys from last year. There's goalkeeper Sean Lewis, defender Tiago Calvano, and then two guys who I guess are both classes midfielders. There's Jake Bond and John Grosh. And so of the roster from last year, which I guess would have been like I forgot to figure out the official number. It was like like 25 guys.
Hmm.
It really seems like those are the only four that are officially coming back. And so and those aren't. I mean, Sean Lewis, I think, could be the starting goalkeeper. He did a good job. He has a different style than Brandon Miller. He's a little rangier. I don't know if it is that. I don't know if he's a guy you would call a sweeper keeper. He's not quite like that, but the way he plays, he's played a different style. But I think he could work. He played Jacksonville Armada a couple of years ago. He's got what it takes to be. He could start. Thiago Calvano, he's a vet. He's like 35. He played for
Yeah.
Minnesota in the NASL before he came to us. He'll definitely be a good. He'll probably be the captain, a good defensive presence to good have as a center back. But then the other two guys, they played well, but they're more depth guys. Like
Hmm.
Jake Bond and Grush both got pulled in a lot last year, but that's because there was periods where there's like 5, 6 guys injured, and so they kind of played and they played out of position a lot of the time. That was pretty common last season. And so that this we don't have like the one guy yet who's like, oh, this is going to be the breakout guy for this season. So I mean, what I've been asking, what the fans I've been talking to is like, so where are we going to get guys from?
Hmm.
And like we have some leads. It seems like so there's another 20 guys or so they're gonna sign before the season starts. The most exciting thing is that they'll probably, like last year, get about 3 guys or so on loan from Ghana.
Hmm.
From Inter Allies. The connection there is that George Altiers, the Capelli sports guy who owns the majority of Harrisburg, also owns Inter Allies. And so the Ghana Premier League is very much like the league. It's like a lot of young guys, and if you
Yep.
get good, you get sold somewhere else. Like a lot of guys go from Ghana to like Sweden or Norway
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
Turkey. You see a lot of that. And so it'll probably be like 3 guys, maybe 18, 19, 20, who are just skilled guys who is just like it, it'd be best for Inter Allies to sell them, have them play over here for a year, get more attention, get more video of them, uh, get more eyes on them, and then they're more valuable to Inter Allies than if they want to move, ship them somewhere.
Hmm.
So I think that's a real wild. That's the real wild card for this season is who are those guys and what can they do? Because last year that was Ropapa, and then we had
Hmm.
Abbas Mohammed was our left back, and then Freddie Apoku. He didn't get a chance to play as much. Like there was other guys ahead of him on the depth chart, but when he played, he really shows like a couple times like some nice skills. There was the one long we got a goal against St. Louis where it was just like this nice string of passes to slip it past the keeper, and then Jake Bond just tapped it in. But Freddie did some great moves on that one. That was probably his biggest highlight of the year. So if he comes back, it'd replace some of these like speedy guys from Jamaica who we'd lose. We have these guys to kind of come in and don't know who they are, but I expect that there's going to be a few of those to make an impact in Harrisburg for Penn FC this year.
Sure.
Uh, and then what the impression I've got from like rumors and stuff we've seen online, there's probably going to be some NASL guys making their way
Mm.
because guys who had been on teams that probably even to this very day or even when this is airing don't really know what their future is. So to
Hmm.
have NFC be like, hey, here's a chance to play this season, it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's more than I had before.
Right.
So, you got guys from the teams that dissolve, like FC Edmonton or uh, Puerto Rico FC. Might see some guys from there, or even I think a lot of the last roster from Orlando City B is still like up in the air. So
Yeah,
that's
I haven't seen too many of those guys land. And maybe part of that is that the young Lions used a fair amount of MLS guys even.
yeah,
So
they
maybe they just kind of got absorbed by the first team again, or what have you.
yeah
But
they
yeah,
weren't
no,
a
that's a good
ton
point.
of signed directly to OCB guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like other of the two teams or the B teams had more of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's like some of that, and then we've seen rumors of like PDL guys who like I there was an article someone found like in New Mexico of like a guy who did an interview saying that he had a tryout. Now he might have just gone to the pro tryout at the end of
Hmm.
last season. That
Right.
wasn't entirely clear, but I feel like that's probably PDL guys with some rush experience, maybe coming from a rush soccer academy. I
Yeah.
feel like some of those are going to show up. Same sort of age range as the other guys. They might be, around their early 20s. Uh, that for them to be like, it might be a coaching system that they know or more familiar with. They might be able to get started and be able to get playing right away.
Yeah.
And I feel like that combined is going to get to the roster as opposed to like the typical, Harrisburg City Islanders roster of the last few years would be a couple of the veterans that have been on City Island for a long time, localish guys. Then you'd have a couple like I don't want to say MLS reject because it sounds mean, but like guys who are like got like 6 games in the MLS and in,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
yeah in MLS and then wound up down in USL. You have a few of those, and then like young guys who missed out on the draft or who were drafted in the lower rounds and didn't get signed. You just kind of cobbled that together to make a team, and I feel like they're gonna be like that, but go a little younger. Fewer of
Hmm.
the guys who've just been kicking around professional soccer for a long time, looking to find a place to play for the year. More young guys who aren't going to be spending the next 12 years playing for Penn FC, but who you could definitely entice them in saying like, hey, get a couple years here, uh,
Then who
get
knows
more
from there, kind of
experience,
thing.
and then
Yeah.
maybe see where that takes you.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And it's one of those things where I feel like, by and large, Harrisburg, in the years past, has aged or has been a little older. Um, and just the fact that there seems to be a good system in place, or at least an intriguing one, or one that they have a pretty, like, clear cut plan. And then not only that, but it's a younger team, and that's always a little bit more, I don't know, like, entertaining to watch, and sort of interesting to see where those guys will end up. Um,
Yeah.
and then, speaking of years past, you guys are in two different derbies. And actually, they share a team, which is interesting. But the Old Guard Shield, which is like one of my favorite tournaments, or kind of in league rivalries in U.S. soccer, and then the Keystone Cup, which doesn't have all of the teams in the Keystone State in it. But
How did I know you were going to mention that?
well, you're here, and I've been told multiple times that it's a Harrisburg / Penn FC decision.
Oh, really? I
Yeah, the
thought it
Hounds
was. I
guys.
thought the Philly
Yeah,
lottery decided that.
I guess, but like,
Well, I guess that is in
wouldn't
Harrisburg,
someone?
isn't it?
Yeah, wouldn't someone just go, "Hey, by the way, there's a third team. Can you?" I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So talk a little bit about the and we'll have Charleston and Richmond represented soon. Um, but maybe talk about that from a Harrisburg perspective, and then the derby you guys have going with the Riverhounds as well.
Sure. Yeah, the old guard shield was. We're trying to get that, or it seems like the Harrisburg people want to get that out there more because I think even the players are kind of like, "What's this? What's this big trophy you
Maybe
guys
the
have?"
guys that haven't been around in USL for a little bit, or the new Ghanaian guys, and you're like, well,
No, it's just
so
no
it's
one
all
ever
these
actually sat
teams.
there and said. I mean, the old guard shield had the Twitter account and everything, but no one ever
Right, right,
actually
right.
got the players and said like, "Hey, when you're playing Richmond or Charleston or Rochester,
Yep.
taking a break. or Pittsburgh, there's this trophy that's up for grabs. No, I don't think anyone actually really sat him down and told him that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, maybe that's for the gives it a more authentic feel.
Maybe.
But so yeah, so those are all the teams that were playing back through the USL two. I think Harrisburg is the newest team of those five, having
Yeah, because
played
the
so
Hounds
much
came in
before.
'99, so I think, and then obviously Richmond and Charleston and Rochester were all there from like '96 or whatever.
They're,
So
they're technically the young ones. Uh,
yeah.
and it's just so yeah, so going back against all those teams, Harrisburg and Richmond had that championship clash back in 2007. It's just there's for the fans who are like the few fans who have been like there the whole time type.
Hmm.
I know like Richmond definitely has some like that, and Rochester too. All and that the, these teams have been playing for just so long back when professional soccer in the United States was still just very like changing all the time.
Hmm.
And so that's what makes these games tough, especially now. I think the Shield was a good way to really focus back on these teams at a time where, you know, new teams are coming in at a crazy pace.
Right.
When you consider back in like 2011, the first season, that crazy first season, there's only like 11 teams because the three teams from Puerto Rico like were so bad that they had to leave or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
These guys toughed it out, and that's just it gives a little recognition of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
It's
It's in recent years. The games against Rochester are always tough. Harrisburg, I think Harrisburg didn't beat Rochester for an extended period of time. Richmond, I think Harrisburg was playing Richmond like 3 or 4 times a season, and that one was pretty more even. Although
mhm.
Richmond had strong seasons, and then like last season, Richmond wasn't great last season, but they played Harrisburg tough. I think
Right. Right.
yeah, each side got a win and then one draw. So that's another one where like even when like one team's up, one team's down when you play,
Yeah.
you never tell. It's a rivalry like that. And then with Charleston, I think I looked it up because Harrisburg got up on Charleston and then gave up the lead at home last year.
Yeah.
Like I looked at Harrisburg hasn't beaten Charleston since like 2014.
Oof.
It's getting sad. I mean, they've had a couple draws, but it's one of those. I mean, it's gonna be that one's gonna be interesting this year because of the way Charleston got carved up so bad.
Yeah. For sure.
They A lot of people got plucked out of there, and Harrisburg's playing Charleston. I want to say both in March and April,
Mm.
like right away. So that one will be interesting to see. But it's good to recognize these old teams
Hmm.
and give them a little something extra to play for when you have all these new teams
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah. And definitely a way for, like you said, like the league is so rapidly expanding. Like even from when this sounds terrible, but like even from when I came in 2015 with Bethlehem, and it was like, all right, this is neat. It's a Division 3. It's kind of nichey. There's 500 people at a game or whatever. And now you go and you look at Sacramento's always been huge, obviously, but then you have your FC Cincinnati comes in and that goes better than anyone could have predicted or in good conscience made a bet on, and you have Nashville's coming in and they're already going to be in MLS or whatever the hell that is. So
Yeah,
it's definitely nice to see, not only these teams from way back in the day come in, but for them to and for people that don't know, that's all supporters group. They just kind of came up with that and went, we're going to do this, which is awesome.
right. Yeah, each of
And
the
I
supporting
know,
groups are officially behind it.
yeah, yeah, and I know the guys who head up the and I'm gonna forget their names now, damn. But the Richmond supporters group and the Charleston supporters groups are guys like you said who've been there since the 1990s. So it's funny talking
Red
to
Army and the
guys.
Regiment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
It's funny talking to guys who've been following soccer for almost as long as like I've been alive. You know, in that capacity. So it's really cool, just as a nice way to kind of be reverent towards your elders, so to speak. So yeah, that one's definitely interesting. And then the Keystone Cup, you guys and the Riverhounds.
That one's I don't know. Does USL have they already done a like key rivalries like list for this season.
I haven't seen
They
anything.
like games to watch, I think. But I mean, that
Yeah,
one needs to be on there. The Harrisburg Pittsburgh rivalry has been.
it's not the best soccer I've ever seen. I apologize. It's not the best soccer I've ever seen, but it's one of those games where you just kind of have to watch it just
Yeah,
because
you're
of
starting to get into like some of the, because Pittsburgh didn't have Cincinnati team, like, the whole NFL connection where you
right,
want to
right.
play Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. Well, there was like a Cincinnati team in like 2007. I want to say like the Cincinnati Kings or something like that.
Hmm.
But in that in between time, it was like, yeah, it was Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and when they first started up and made the trophy, the Keystone Derby, that was probably the craziest year, 2015. I mean, that was Pittsburgh's best year
Yes.
in recent memory, uh, easily. And so there was the two wild games. The one that Pittsburgh, yeah, the one what was it? It was like Harrisburg was up 5-3, and Pittsburgh ended up winning like entirely in extra time.
Yeah, I'm sure tomorrow when after I give this to him, Michael posts something about whatever they call that game. The Miracle of the
That's
Mon
the
or whatever
Miracle
the
on the
hell. And
Mon. Yeah.
yeah. So
They had that one, and then the next one I was at was only the second Harrisburg game I ever been to. It was Pittsburgh was up 3-1. Jose Baril comes on and did his thing,
that's
which is he gets 2 yellow cards in 2 minutes and gets sent off right away.
yeah.
So it's 70 minutes, you're down 3-1, and Harrisburg, with 10 men, manages to score 3 goals in 20 minutes and goes on to win 4-3. And it was just the only other game I'd been to at that point was a 0-0 draw against Toronto FC2.
Ooh, good.
To have that happen was like, what is going
Yeah,
on?
the
That was
notoriously great
back at the
Toronto
old,
FC too.
yeah, back at the old Skyline Sports Complex,
Okay.
which, I mean, it's not super impressive.
Yeah, not heralded for being a wonderful soccer venue by all means.
No, so that was craziness. And they won that year, and then 2016, neither team was doing all that great. Harrisburg won with I think it was a win and 2 draws.
Yep.
And then last year, same thing, where it's like two very evenly matched teams, but it was Pittsburgh wanted it, and they got it. They came to City Island with a win. A win would do it, a win or a draw,
Hmm.
and they ended up winning 3-0. Oh, that was rough to
Hmm.
watch. Harrisburg's thing last year is if they went down by 2, it was like, nah, they're not coming back. And so, yeah, I feel like this last stretch has helped. It used to be a thing where, like, when it was a smaller league, that I think they could. I mean, they were playing as many as like 4 times a year.
Right.
Or just like these guys again. But now now they're not going to see each other as much. Having this extra thing is as kind of keeps it going, for a couple of the smaller teams. Although it's one of those
Yeah.
ones where, like, this is something I didn't realize until I went back and double checked, because Pittsburgh, like, they always last season they had our number, beat us twice and then a 0-0 draw that they probably could have won. One shot goes a different way and they win that one too. But then at the end of the year, Pittsburgh was lower on the table. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
It's just like they were beating Harrisburg, but they weren't really beating much anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's been
Yeah.
kind of their thing, is that they, since it became the USL Pro, I think Pittsburgh finished ahead of Harrisburg on the table only once in the last 7 years. It's always, so that was 2015. Other than that, Harrisburg was higher than them on the table, especially in the USL Pro years. In the USL Pro years, it was the opposite, that Harrisburg had Pittsburgh's number. And so now it's more Pittsburgh's had the advantage the last 3 years. So I feel like it's at times a little too heated on both. You can get the sort of soccer thing where it's like, okay, there's kids here. Let's remember to be civil. But that makes it fun in some ways, that you can have this matchup that is, easily travelable by car, that you can just zip back and forth and really get to, really have a team that you can,
Sure.
you really want to see your team beat. And they always put on good matches. That's what's the best part about it.
They're at least interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, where can people find you on the internet? And if you anything else you want to plug, feel free. It's the floor is yours.
I mean, I do my writing on Brotherly Game. with some great people.
Thank you.
You can check out all their work, of course.
I like that
And
you're
on
indirectly
Twitter.
complimenting me, but still complimenting me at the same time. I'm a little
No,
conflicted,
I
but
mean, because
it's
like you and also like Eugene and Matt and everybody.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
The MLS
And
guys. Yeah.
but so I'm at C_Brat. It's it's mostly the articles and then occasional observations.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Occasional victory pies.
yeah. So if you want to follow, follow me there for keeping up on Penn FC as they keep letting out more information as they have more as they go into the preseason here. The preseason started today, but the pictures of the players are too small for us to identify them. So we were trying. But I mean, the preseason games start just a week or two. We
Yeah.
got a good. They're gonna be playing. You're gonna be playing Bethlehem, Pittsburgh, and I think Red Bulls too, as well.
Yeah, it's always a tricky one to try to
So
say, Red Bull 2 also or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, well, Chris, appreciate it. I know you're really like the only person that's doing consistent work out there for Penn FC, and you've been doing it. So my affiliation with you through Brotherly Game aside, there was no one else that I thought of to cover Penn FC, and so I'm glad you did. Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
And definitely feel free to give us a shout whenever, and we'll have you back. There's a sticker coming your way. I'll just need your address, and I can send that off to you.
Oh yeah.
Other than that, guys, I guess I'll throw this here now. Thanks to everyone for watching the USL show. You can follow that at the USL show. We also have a Patreon, in case I forget to say that in the intro. It's just, patreon.com/the USL show. We are also sponsored by the lovely Soccer Loco, which if you need anything as far as cleats or shirts or shorts or equipment, anything soccer related, go check those guys out. There's a link on our homepage, theuslshow.com. Click on that and we'll get a cut of whatever you buy there. Definitely feel free to check them out. And then I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that this is brought to you by Roughneck Scarves before everything or after everything. So worst case scenario, I'm going to do it twice. This one just popped up like last week. I think the first we announced it. So this is the first time I get to say it. But this has been brought to you by Roughneck Scarves, which if you own a scarf, chances are, if it's soccer related, I guess, that it's from Roughneck. So definitely go check those guys out. Roughneck Scarves for all of your scarf related needs. So yeah. And then, I guess myself personally, if for whatever reason you want to hear more of me or read more of what I do on the Twitters at Villela Vias and Victor, ILLELLA BSFC. I also do righty things on Brotherly Game with Chris. So had to get those plugs in there. Appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys this weekend. Actually, we're filming a special power ranking show, so be on the lookout for that one. But the Western Conference guys will take care of you later this week. And then we'll be business as usual shortly when the season starts. So looking forward to that. Chris, thanks again for being on. And I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Cool. And that is that. I didn't know this week where to put in all those plugs, so I just figured that would be a decent time.
Yeah, I did a lot of radio in college. And then at one point they were like, hey, we found a sponsor for your show. And it was just like, man, now I got to say stuff.
So it's funny because like the Soccer Loco one, I've been putting kind of at the midway part of the show. So like after the news and before we kind of get into the team previews recently, I'm like, that's a really good spot to put that. It's, kind of like an easy transition. So I'll just chop it in there. But now for this, where it's like, I don't have the news and then these aren't really like free flowing interviews. So they don't really like, they're not going to line up super well with each other. I was like, I'll just put it at the end or whatever. And then for the Roughneck one, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to put it at the beginning, but I figured putting it at the end isn't going to make them mad at me. So, like, I was like, all right, we'll just do that then. When I start the broadcast, it'll basically kick us both out of the call. So, I appreciate it. This will go up on tomorrow. All I have to do is just kind of do a little intro thing and then it'll be great. So look for that. I'm sure you'll see it on the Twitter and everything like that. But yeah. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,